So today, we're going to talk about something really powerful. We're looking at how the decisions made in a boardroom can actually be one of the strongest tools for First Nations self-determination. We're talking about transforming board governance from, just a set of rules into a sacred trust that protects a nation's future. Okay, let's dive right in. To really get why this is so incredibly critical, we have to start right here. This quote, it isn't just a statement. It's the truth of lived history. For generations, information about First Nations peoples, we're talking their health, their lands, their children, was taken. And it wasn't used to help, it was used to control and to harm. This history, right here, is the reason why data sovereignty isn't some academic idea. It's an absolute necessity. So to really feel the weight of this, we have to understand that history. This legacy of harm is the fundamental why that's driving this entire movement for data sovereignty. I mean, just look at this timeline. And this is an ancient history. Data was systematically used as a weapon of colonialism. Records from residential schools were used to enforce assimilation. Medical data? It was collected through experimentation on entire communities that were treated like lab rats, not like partners. Even environmental and census data was twisted to justify taking land. This legacy is exactly what data sovereignty is pushing back against. And this right here just lays out the two completely different worlds, the two worldviews. The Western model has always been extractive. It comes in, it takes data, it claims to own it, and it rips it away from all of its cultural meaning. But on the other hand, the First Nations data model sees information as belonging to everyone, to the collective. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's sacred knowledge. It's tied to spirit, to the land, and to the health of the people. So with that history and these clashing worldviews, how can a board actually offer protection? Well, the first tool is a concept you've probably heard of, but we're going to look at it as something much deeper, as a profound cultural and ethical responsibility, the sacred trust of fiduciary duty. Let's just geek out for a second on the word itself. Fiduciary comes from the Latin word fiducia, and it means trust. And that is so important. For a board member in a First Nations context, this isn't just about ticking a legal box. It's about accepting a sacred trust to act with complete integrity and to protect the interests of the nations you serve above absolutely everything else. So this trust, it breaks down into three core duties. First up, you've got the duty of care. That means you do your homework, you show up prepared, you ask the tough questions. Next, the duty of loyalty. This one's simple. Your loyalty is to the collective good of the nations you serve, not your own personal agenda. And finally, the duty of obedience. This is about following the rules, right? But, and this is critical, this means prioritizing the nation's own sacred protocols and laws above all. All right, so fiduciary duty gives you the ethical compass, the why. But what's the practical, hands-on toolkit for making decisions about data? Well, that brings us to the OCAP framework, which is just an essential set of principles for any board member. OCAP. This is the gold standard for First Nations data governance. It stands for ownership, control, access, and possession. Now, don't think of these as four separate ideas. Think of them as four pillars holding up a roof, working together, reinforcing each other to build this incredibly strong protective structure around a nation's data. It's a brilliant framework, really. Let's start with O for ownership. And the key takeaway here is this. Data about a First Nation belongs to that nation, period. This ownership is inherent. It wasn't given by anyone, so it can't be taken away or signed over. The nation owns it, and because of that, the nation has the right to benefit from it. Next up is C for control. So if ownership is the right, then control is the power. It's the absolute authority to make the decisions how data is gathered, how it's used, who gets to see it. It is the power to say yes, no, or yes, but only if you follow our rules. And just as importantly, it means the nation can change its mind and pull out of a partnership at any time. Then we have A for access. This principle is all about making sure that nations can actually see and use the data that is about them. This is so huge for reclaiming historical data that was collected without any consent. And it's not enough to just get a massive spreadsheet dumped on you. The information has to be shared back in a way that's clear, that's accessible, and that's actually meaningful to the community. And finally, P is for possession. This is about physical and digital stewardship. I mean, where does the data actually live? Possession means it should be stored in secure systems that are controlled by the nation or by a trusted partner, not sitting on some university server or a government cloud where the nation has zero control over who's looking at it. Yeah, let's just sit with that for a second. Fiduciary duty, OCAP,
These aren't just abstract ideas. They become real, they're put into action in one specific place, the boardroom. The choices made around that table will echo for generations.
So now, let's pull all of these threads together. This is the moment where we see that being a good board member and being a guardian of data sovereignty are really one and the same job. This is it. This is the core idea of this whole explainer. These are not two different things. Every single time a board makes a decision about a budget, a new policy, a partnership, it is also at the same time making a decision about data sovereignty. Good governance is data sovereignty in action. They're two sides of the same coin. Okay, that's great in theory, right? But what does this actually look like in a real meeting when you've got a proposal on the table and you need to vote? Let's get practical and look at a framework for making these decisions.
Here is the question every single board member should be asking. How do you take a potential decision and run it through the OCAP principles to see if it actually holds up? Okay, look how quickly this test gives you total clarity. Let's walk through this example. A university wants to partner on a project. First, ownership. Question: does the nation own the data? Answer: no. The university plans to publish it. That is an immediate hard reject. Okay, next. Control. Does the nation control how data is used? Partial, because they can't approve sharing. That's a deal breaker, so you renegotiate. Access. The nation can request it. Okay, that's a pass. But possession? The data's going to be stored on the university's server. That's another clear reject. So in just a few minutes, this test shows you that this agreement is deeply flawed and has to be rejected or completely rewritten from the ground up.
And this really brings us to the final and most important question. The next time you cast a vote in that boardroom, you're not just making a business decision, you are making a promise. A promise to your ancestors, a promise to your community today, and a promise to the 7 generations who are not even here yet. Board governance, when you look at it through this lens, becomes what it was always meant to be, a sacred act of protection and sovereignty.